Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a not-so-drunk edition of Drunk Discussions. This isn't going to be a long episode. This is just going to be sort of another little update episode as to how life's going, what's going on, and why this show may not be posting as much in the next couple of weeks. So without further ado, let's get this shit started. That's right, it is another edition of Drunk Discussions. And as I said off the top, this is a not-so-drunk edition of Drunk Discussions. I'm just going to do a quick little update for you guys today. Probably going to be about, 15-20 minutes, maybe half an hour. I do kind of drone on when I really start to talk. So we'll see how it goes. But just a little bit of an update for this episode. Nothing more, nothing less. Before I begin, of course, if you're listening to this, you've already found the show, but I would greatly appreciate if you let other people know where they can find this show to help the show and podcast grow. This podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, including Stitcher. Not Stitcher, because Stitcher is no longer an app. I keep forgetting that Stitcher announced that they are no longer going to be providing a podcasting service. So not available on Stitcher, but this podcast is still available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and of course the main source of uploading is Podbean, drunkdiscussions.podbean.com. And like I said, it's available wherever else you listen to your podcasts. And if you want to help support the show, you can buy some merch by going to shop.spreadshirt.com/drunkdiscussions, or you can make a one-time donation to paypal.me/drunkdiscussions. If you want to follow the show on social media, you can do so by going to @drunkdpodcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Facebook.com/drunkdiscussions. It is on YouTube, although I should say that I am not doing a video podcast for this one. I am already behind on video podcasts. I do intend to get caught up. I think I have at least 2 that I know I have to do, because the AI one, there were so many problems when I was trying to edit the video podcast of that one, because the film editing software that I use was doing an update, and it updated while I was in the middle of doing the editing for that episode, and the update just caused all sorts of problems when I continued to try to edit it after I updated. So I'm going to try to redo that one from scratch. Plus I have episode 60 that I need to do, and I think episode 58, I can't remember if I did one for episode 58 or not. But I have at least two video podcasts I still have to edit. Like I said, maybe 3. So I'm not doing a video podcast for this episode for that reason. But you can find the show on YouTube. Just look for Drunk Discussions in the search bar. And if you want to help support me on OnlyFans, where I do erotic readings of short stories, you can go to onlyfans.com/discussions after dark. With that out of the way, let's start with life updates. So, for those of you who listen regularly, and there's not many of you, I already know that, but I've said it before, over the past couple of months, I was laid off from my previous job back in December, and I have been looking for work ever since, and I just recently got hired. As of August, 14th, I think, I have been hired for a new job. It's not a full-time job like I thought it was. Turns out it's only a part-time job, so I'm still going to be working minimal hours. But it's better than nothing. I'll take any sort of income at this point in time, and hopefully the minimal hours that I've been told as of right now, hopefully that can grow into more hours at some point. But yeah, so I was expecting to get a full-time job. It's only part-time as of right now, but still, as I'm recording this, I haven't officially started my first shift yet, my first day of work. So it's going to be an adjustment getting back into the work life after having been unemployed for the past eight and a half months. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to be putting out as many drunk discussions episodes as frequently as I have been. I know the past month or so I've been infrequent as I've been interviewing for more jobs, but that infrequency is probably going to increase. I'm still going to be doing drunk discussions. I just can't guarantee it's going to be every 2 weeks like I normally do, like I try and intend to do. Ever since this podcast has been created, I've tried to release a new episode every other Friday. Of course, it hasn't always worked out. And like I said, moving forward because of the new job and just getting readjusted to work life, episodes are gonna probably be fewer and further between while I make that adjustment. But like I said, the hours aren't as much as I thought, so I will still have time to work on this podcast. But having said that, another podcast of mine may be coming back. My co-host for the Ocho and Ortiz Disney podcast has been working night shifts for the past 2 years at his job, and he's just recently moved back into day shifts. So after a near 2-year hiatus, our last Ocho and Ortiz Disney podcast was released October 31st, 2021. So it's been almost 2 years since we released an episode. But after an almost 2-year hiatus, we are going to start recording the Ocho and Ortiz Disney podcast regularly again, now that Ortiz is back to working day shifts and will have evenings and weekends free in order to record new episodes. So I don't know when the first episode back for that is going to be, because we haven't yet recorded the first episode back, as Ortiz has been readjusting to a daytime work schedule. But we will be recording a new episode very, very soon, and we'll be doing that on a more regular basis going forward. I really enjoy doing the Ocho and Ortiz Disney podcast. I had a blast doing that, and I'm so happy to have it back, especially now that I've been to Disney World twice in the past year. So we are definitely going to be talking about our trips to Disney World, and we'll be getting back into movie reviews and stuff. But if you want to follow that, you can follow it on Twitter at Ocho Ortiz Disney. I believe our Instagram is the same. I believe that's at Ocho and Ortiz Disney as well. It's been so long. At Ocho and Ortiz Disney Pod on Instagram. So at Ocho and Ortiz Disney at Ocho Ortiz Disney on Twitter, and then at Ocho and Ortiz Disney Pod on Instagram. And I know we have a Facebook, but I can't remember what it is. But if you go to Facebook and just search for Ocho and Ortiz Disney Podcast, you'll be able to find it there, as well as on YouTube. And of course, that podcast is available on all the same platforms that Drunk Discussions is available on. And I believe the Podbean is Ocho and Ortiz Disney Pod.podbean.com. I'm just going to quickly double check that. Yeah, so like I said, you can find the Ocho and Ortiz Disney podcast on most major podcasting platforms. And the main source of uploading is Ocho and Ortiz Disney Pod.podbean.com. So you can check it out there as well. But I am really, really excited to be back and doing that podcast. Like I said, it's fun to talk about Disney. I know there's a lot of controversy going around Disney right now, especially with their live action remakes. And you know what? I have not seen their live action remakes. I don't plan on seeing the live action remakes. I know Ortiz is going to try to make me watch some of them, but for me, the cartoons are always going to be far superior, no matter what. Like, I just grew up on the cartoons. So, to me, no live action film is going to compare to the cartoon versions of a lot of these Disney films that they're remaking these days. But we've done a lot of reviews on the Ocho and Ortiz Disney podcast, but we've also done a couple of interviews with Timmy Britt, who is a former Disney Imagineer. I've enjoyed the interviews that we've done with Timmy. I believe we had him on 3 times. I know I interviewed him once solo for a full episode, and then he came back on to discuss the book that he had written, and both Josh and I were a part of that podcast, whereas the first one, it was just me. Of course, if you haven't already bought the book, it's available on Amazon. Extraordinary Everyday Magic by Timmy Britt. It's a beautiful read. I highly, highly recommend picking it up. And then Timmy was on one other time. Again, it was just me interviewing him. And that was part of the last episode that we had. The last episode we reviewed Halloween Town, but Timmy Britt had also come on to stop by for about half an hour to discuss his real life experiences with ghosts. And it was about a half hour, 40-minute discussion that I had with Timmy that I had condensed down to about 15, 20 minutes for the review of Halloween Town. But the full episode of Timmy stopping by and discussing his ghost stories with me is available on our Patreon page. I just can't remember the link for our Patreon right now, but it will be I'll put it in the description box down below in this episode if you guys want to go and check it out. But yeah, back to just work life very, very briefly. I'm excited, like I said, to have a new job, especially being unemployed for 8.5 months, but I was definitely hoping for something more full-time, so I don't know. I'm gonna do this job, see how it goes. Obviously, bringing back the Ocho and Ortiz Disney podcast, having the free time is definitely going to be helpful to the podcast because I do want to put time and effort into the Disney podcast because I'd really like to make something out of that podcast and try to really grow the audience for that. But I know I'm not going to be able to sustain myself on just part-time hours, so I'll give it a couple of weeks, see how it goes between the new job and doing the Disney podcast. I'll see how I'm balancing and managing the two, but I do think that by September, October, when more places are hiring for seasonal help, I'll probably definitely try to pick up a second job or hopefully find a full-time job during that time frame. So we'll see how things go, but definitely excited to have a new job and definitely excited to bring the Disney podcast back. I'm at about 15.5 minutes, so I'm probably going to, if I edit this down, it's probably going to be 10 minutes. Let me see if I can find a short set of 80s commercials. Maybe finish with that. Where is 80s commercials vault? Let's see what they have. 80s commercials vault on YouTube is getting longer with their commercials, which I like. That would make for a good regular episode. It's 1:30, almost 1:30 in the morning right now as I'm recording this, and I don't really want to sit through 20 minutes of retro commercials. Yeah, you know what? It is 1:30 in the morning right now. I think I'm just gonna forgo the 80s commercials. I'll make that the next episode. On the next episode of Drunk Discussions, I'll do a couple of retro commercial videos from 80s Commercial Vault. But for this one, yeah, this one's just a short life update, like I said. So I'll wrap it up. For those of you who listen to this show regularly or even just occasionally, I definitely appreciate you and thank you for doing so. Once again, as I said off the top, you can find this podcast on all major podcasts and platforms, including but not limited to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and of course Podbean, the main source of uploading drunkdiscussions.podbean.com. Buy some merch, or at least check out the merch if you want to. Go to shop.spreadshirt.com/drunkdiscussions. Or if you want to help support the show, make a one-time donation by going to paypal.me/drunkdiscussions. Of course, the social media, @DrunkDPodcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, facebook.com/drunkdiscussions, and just search for Drunk Discussions on YouTube. With that being said, as always, whether you're listening to this in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, whatever time of day it is, where you are, when you're listening to this, I appreciate you listening. I thank you for listening, and I will hopefully talk to you again very, very soon. Bye-bye. All right, so I did not think I was going to have to do an addendum. I think I'm using that word correctly. I didn't think I was going to have to do an add-on at the end of this episode, but apparently I am, because like 2 days after I recorded this episode, while I was still editing it, the new job that I got hired for abruptly fired me after only 8 days. Even though they hadn't scheduled me for a single shift, they still decided to fire me. I'm not going to go any further into it because I am, as of recording this little add-on here, I am exploring legal options to see if I have a case for a wrongful termination lawsuit. So I won't get into the specifics of what happened. But yeah, so apparently I'm still going to have a ton of free time on my hands, although hopefully not too much longer. I am now looking for jobs again, and I have a couple of interviews lined up as of this recording. So hopefully one of those interviews lands. We'll see. Either way, I am still going to be spending more time on the Disney podcast going forward now that Josh is back to day shifts and we can actually record the Disney podcasts on the weekend. So I don't know if I'll spend as much time doing drunk discussions, but I do have a bit more time than I thought when I recorded this episode because of being fired after just 8 days. Anyways, yeah, that's all I want to say. Just want to add on that fantastical life update. Anyways, as I already said, thank you guys. If you're listening to this, I greatly appreciate it more than you ever know. So just thank you. I appreciate you. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.